We are live. Hey guys, how you doing? Actually, usually it takes TikTok a little bit longer to notify people, so they were quick on the trigger here, which is quite ironic based on my current circumstance of being the most banned man on the planet at the moment. All good, anti-fragile. JS, hey, how you doing today? I am currently the most banned man on the talk, but that is okay. We will survive. We will be anti-fragile, because the truth is that being a truth speaker and being someone who stands for liberty and freedom is not something that's valued by the beast system. And Majestically Awkward, hey, how you doing? But the thing is that through every hardship, we learn. And every time we are hit down, that's an opportunity to get back up. And we as Americans, we as people who love liberty, we as parents and mothers and fathers who have to set an example, not just for our fellow Americans, but for our children and our little eyes who are watching us. And I know that every day I wake up and I want to be that guy, right? I want to be the guy that my wife looks at and she loves, because she knows I have morality and stand by my convictions. And I want to be that role model. I want to be the man that my son wants to become, and I want to be the man that my daughter wants to marry, right? I want to be that role model. Doing well. How are you and your family? Oh, we're doing great. We're gonna go into town after this. Have a nice day. My wife was doing some awesome cooking stuff with my son all morning, which she's been posting a lot about on her channel, which is really cool. But how do we do that? How do we stand up for our values when we face extreme censorship? When, for those of you not aware, I was on my stream on Friday and I got a community guidelines strike. And I actually appealed the strike and I won the appeal. So I thought, okay, great. But I don't know if it's by design or if the algorithm doesn't see that they overturned my community guidelines strike. But needless to say, when I post videos now, it goes out to literally 0. And that's with 76,000 followers. They don't show it to one person. So I actually, well, that takes us to anti-fragile, right? Because if we're going to survive in this world, we have to be tough. And I talked about it a little bit yesterday. I talked about my journey. And I'm going to be adjusting what I do on social media. I'm going to be adjusting the way that I run this page. And I think I'm going to be even creating a new Cubs to Bears TikTok page, because, well, what's the point of posting on my page right now if it's not going to be shown to anyone? So I think I might create a new page later today. But we live in a world in which the tallest nail is constantly hammered down. And we need to prepare ourselves and prepare our children through our example to be free and live better lives. By the way, if you guys have any questions in relation to what I'm talking about, any questions in relation to homeschooling, looks like I'm being spammed here. Let me block you. Block. Goodbye. It's so funny because I get these spam accounts that come on and they're like, I guess they're selling, you know what they're selling, SEX. And it's like, I run a homeschool community. Like, these are homeschool mothers, right? Yeah, it looked like a troll. Homeschool mothers. Not exactly the best marketing strategy in terms of who they're trying to reach, but I don't know, it's probably bots. So at least the bots can see that I'm streaming. But, in the last 2 years, we've all been tested, right? More of these bots. See my personal note. hdow, who's probably a bot, wants you. Get out of here. Get lost. Block. oh no, there's another one. It's unbelievable. But anyway, the show must go on. So we've all been tested in the last year, and like my circumstances right now, although unfortunate, especially when you're running a company and, yeah, bye-bye bots, when you're running a company and you literally get banned the day you release a new book in November and December when everyone buys books. It's a little bit frustrating, but that's what Anti-Fragile's about, and it's the way I try to live my life, and I'm going to talk about it a little more because it really is so important. In the midst of everything that was happening, when the world was breaking down, when people were having anxiety and depression over the last 2 years, where I lived in New York, which was quite literally a hell on earth, where everywhere I went, I would be harassed over not giving in to certain degrees of authoritarianism. I think you all know what I'm talking about. Just trying to talk in code here. And a lot of people were tested mentally, and I've seen people I know not leave their house for 2 years because they're so afraid. And what a travesty that is, right? But everyone was tested, and you see how people handle it. Some people turn to pills, some people turn to alcohol, the suicide rates go through the roof, right? We have all been tested over the last 2 years. And what I've really taken away from that, among many things, is that we have to have compassion for our fellow man, for our fellow woman, understand that everyone is at a different place mentally. And I've kind of taken that, like, it taught me how to wake people up, right? Like, some people aren't ready to see the truth, and it could be cruel to continuously tell it to them. So instead, I just seed people. I was like, hey, did you see this? And when they're ready, they'll start to understand the world better. I'm waiting for the day that people finally stop letting them test us. Well, you know what? The way I see it is, God controls everything, right? And God gives Satan free reign in this realm. So I don't think there would ever be a day when the system won't test us, because the system is here to test us. Right? We are supposed to learn from adversity. We are supposed to be strengthened by trials and tribulations and become better people. And we're supposed to become closer to the source, closer to God, closer to our neighbors, closer to our family and friends, as the system is trying to pull us apart. Because as we know, the system tries to divide people by their immutable characteristics, even though it claims to do the opposite, right? The system tries to make people afraid to even give their family members hugs, right? Something that is truly horrible. And I'm using extreme code right now because the Eye of Sauron is just on me. And I'm literally, if they get rid of me for this, then what are you going to do? Not meant to be here. But we are supposed to get strengthened through this test. So when God allows the devil to do everything that's happened in the last 2 years, well, you see that certain people weren't ready for it, and you see them break down mentally, break down emotionally, but then you see people go the other way, which is why really 2021 has been the year of the schism. Those who have an anti-fragile mindset, right? Because mindset is our power. There could be fire and rain and lightning and thunder and volcanoes and hurricanes and tornadoes all around me. But whether I am in a good situation or a bad situation is only reliant on my mindset. There's the old Chinese proverb. I'm going to paraphrase this and get it terribly wrong, right? Where there is a local farmer and a storm comes through and takes out all of his crops. And, all right, I'll start with this. There's a local farmer, and his son is riding a horse, and the horse jumps up, and his son falls off the horse and breaks his leg. And the town people come and say, this is so unfortunate. This is very bad. And the farmer just says, we'll see. And then 2 months later, his country goes to war. and all of the 18-year-olds are drafted to war, but his son can't go because he has a broken leg, right? And it just goes on, and no matter what happens, we'll see if it's good. We'll see if it's bad. What is the best way to start homeschooling when you need 2 incomes in your home to make ends meet? Yeah, easy peasy is a great, Majestically Awkward pointed out that easy peasy is, the easy peasy all-in-one homeschool is a great free option. ABC Jesus Loves Me is a great free option. If the Khan Academy is an online program, which is free, and it's kind of in that time for learning type mold, but you don't have to pay for it. It's Christian, Khan Academy, Kohan, possibly Kahan, I think Kohan. So you just have to get creative. And what I would do is if I had 2 working parents, I would structure it so some of the work is completely child-driven, and then some of the work is where the parents work directly with the children. And this way you give yourself the flexibility you need to be successful. And understand that you don't need more than 2 hours of formal education a day, and you can allow your children to follow their interests. Wow, didn't know the Khan Academy was free. Yeah, Khan Academy, really good stuff. So there's a lot of good programs. So the point is that as the world throws fire at us, as the world descends upon us, as the devil's wrath reigns upon us, we can drop into a state of despair, right? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not thrilled that right now I'm like the most banned guy on this side of the internet, but I have personal friends that are more banned than me, and I'm aware, and they are very courageous people like Owen Benjamin, people who inspire me every day by their willingness to speak truth. But we have to have an anti-fragile mindset. I see right through the you-know-what, evil behind it, absolutely. We need to stand strong to protect our freedoms and our rights. And that's why I do what I do. And I decided a while ago, kind of through the Art of War, Sun Tzu, which is taught in West Point. Everyone should read Sun Tzu, Art of War. Taught in militaries all around the world that know where your enemy is strong, know where they're weak, and why would you fight them in their strength when you could fight them where they're weak, right? And that's why you don't have to fight the beast directly. Why I write my books. I write The Peanut Trap, the book that I published yesterday about socialism. The Bear from Jekyll Island, about the history of the banking system, which for anyone who's not aware, I know we're taught to look at the left-right paradigm in the politics, but the people pulling their strings are the people who are in control of the banking institutions, because they control the money. Now, the Bear from Jekyll Island, it teaches you about the Federal Reserve Bank, and that money is basically fiat. So these banks, the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private institution, it's not a government institution, prints money that doesn't exist and then loans that money that doesn't exist out to the government and out to the public, right? And they do something, and it's not backed by gold, it's not backed by anything. Our economy is debt, and then they use debt to control people, which I'll get into. And then they do fractional reserve banking. And what that means is if you go and put $10 in the bank has $10. Say you put $10 in the bank. Oh, my money's in the savings account in the bank. Now I go into the bank and I decide I'd like to take out a loan. Well, because the bank has your $10, they could loan me out $90. I think it's a 9/10. It's the 9/10 rule. So if you put $10 in, they could loan me out $90. Say, but wait, they only have $10. Right. That money the bank loans you, that didn't exist before they gave it to you. And then you see the interest rates they're charging you? Compound interest, not simple interest. If there was a congressman worth his salt, in fact, I have access to congresspeople these days, I should probably bring this up. I think it would be a very popular issue, very popular, if they started running on prohibiting banks from charging compound interest on mortgages. Do you think the public might get behind that? But the banks are in control, the puppet strings, and that's why that's not even in people's worldview, right? Like, why is that the first time I've ever heard that? Yeah, why is that the first time you've ever heard that? They ban anyone that goes against their agenda. Yeah. Yeah, well, there's an old saying in Soviet Russia, the tallest nail is hammered down. I never thought I was that tall of a nail, but apparently I am. So, but it's fine. I'm actually hopeful that TikTok does the right thing, because I did appeal the strike and they rescinded it. I don't even have a strike. I guess the algorithm just says that I do. So, although I was already being shadowed a little bit before then, but whatever. But, so, that's why I write these books. Operation Mockingbird and the Church Committee, the congressionally documented history of fraudulent news. The right to bear arms, a basic story about keeping your ability to protect yourself, to defend yourself, to defend your family. By the way, you live out in the country like I do now. Like, before I started the stream, I heard a little rattle, and I grabbed an object, and I had to check to see if there was a rattlesnake, right? Right, so, I mean, the idea that people wouldn't be able to have these tools to protect yourself is so absurd when you live in nature. Free speech, social media censorship, and the First Amendment. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? Dolly Girl, thank you. Really appreciate that. And that's why I write the books, and that's why I teach homeschooling. Because understanding your opposition, where they're weak, you understand that, well, they have all this money and control, and they control the banking institutions and the insurance institutions. The insurance companies, have you ever wondered why it's State Farm, right? Marine Princess, how you doing? Did you just request to join? If you did, I would let you join. I think you're awesome if you wanted to join. You gotta let me know, though, because I don't know, it came up and said invite. Right, so we are farmers. Dun, 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 dun. They're the State Farm, right? They're telling you what they are. These insurance companies are... Oh, okay. All right. I don't know. It came up. Your name popped up and it said, invite Marine Princess. I didn't know if you were requesting to get on the stream. Right? So these insurance companies are immensely powerful. Insurance companies, banks, and we're trained to look at this television screen and see the people on the left side and the right side who are alleged to have different agendas, and to some degree they do. And then we turn all of our anger against each other. We turn at our fellow man. We say, you're the problem. You're bad, right? When in reality, they're doing that, and they're keeping these hot button issues, these kind of nonsense issues, because if we continue to point our fingers at one another, we don't see where the real oppression comes from, right? But unfortunately, a lot of people are very much under spells. Words are spells. People are hypnotized by them. They're hypnotized by narratives. It's kind of like, that's why one of my favorite all-time movies is The Wizard of Oz. Great movie for children. That when you look behind the curtain, right, the wizard didn't have much power at all. The wizard used tools of deception and manipulation. Well, that's why when you see political correctness, when you see these terms, these nonsense terms, cultural appropriation, right, thrown out there, well, the reason for that is these are tools used to restrict the free flow of information, tools used to restrict people who can expose the spellcraft of the Wizard of Oz. That's why we raise our children to identify propaganda. That's why we raise our children to understand their rights. That's why we raise our children with morality, and that's why we raise our children strong, to not be controlled. Thank you for the stream. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for being here. It's an interesting time for me because I'm like the most banned account on the planet right now, which is I didn't see that coming, quite frankly, but I think I might make another account. If everyone wants to join my email list, in fact, so the topic of this talk is anti-fragile, right? And my inability to reach certain people right now is based on my own miscalculation. I really am. Based on my own miscalculation, right? So I should have calculated that in the realm that I operate, I am at high risk to be unpersoned. And because of that, I should have gone through lengths to assure that I had methods of communicating with the people who are interested in my type of message. So I should have been requesting email. So if everyone wants to go to classicallearner.com, there will be a pop-up that will pop up, and you'll have the option to join my email list. And by joining my email list, I can reach out to let you know what I plan on doing, because I have been rethinking my social media strategy so that I'm a little bit more anti-fragile, a little bit more diversified, a little bit more less controllable. So there might be another account on this platform, and I don't know, there's this really cool new account on Instagram, the Panda Bear. I don't know. I mean, the Parody Panda, they're hilarious, that account. But along with some other things that I plan on doing, I might even bring people in to kind of formulate a team to diversify social media so that I can begin to grow on other platforms and reach people with a message of liberty and freedom. But I'm still working everything out exactly how I want to go about that. So we have to be anti-fragile. So joining my email list is one way to make sure that I can always get into contact with you. Bullseye, thank you. It's Meet SJB. Thank you. Really appreciate that. I always tell people, support what you love or it goes away, because the system does everything it possibly can to apply financial pressure and hardship on people who attempt to go against it. And for that reason, it's very difficult. And then people are so conditioned to spend $10 a month on Netflix, but Homeschool's Connected, right? My private homeschool community, $10 a month to that, promo code together, and you're really empowering me to spread a message of liberty and freedom and my children's books and teaching families how to homeschool, which to me is such an important aspect, right? We should all be embracing traditional values. We should be encouraging young people to reject hookup culture, to respect themselves, to wait until they're with someone that they love, to get married, to have lots of children, to homeschool their children. We teach them skills. We get them entrepreneurial experience so that they're not reliant on a corporate authoritarian boss. They're not reliant on another person, right? And if we do this and we homeschool our children and we have lots of children, be fruitful and multiply, and we raise them right, well, that's the next generation of people who will be much more capable than you, much more capable than myself at fighting for and spreading a message of liberty, something that my grandfather fought in World War II, my father. And again, I understand that there are narratives and spellcrafts around these wars themselves, right? Are these just wars? Should they have been fought in the first place? I understand that. But my father went to Vietnam, volunteered on his 18th birthday. And whether you say that it's spellcraft or not, the point is that there have been generations of Americans who, based on their understanding of the world, have been willing to lay down their own life to fight for these principles. And because of that, I owe it to my children to do the best I can in that regard. Hinotes is in the beta phase, but people seem to like it, and you won't get... Yes, Marine Princess strikes again. All right. By the way, everyone should check out her crafts, because just absolute fire. Very cool stuff. I checked out your posts, and I was going to do a duet and promote your stuff, but it wouldn't make sense right now since no one sees my posts at the moment. So hopefully that changes, and then in the future I'll give you a big shout out. So we will see. But right now I have no value in that regard. I am the invisible man. So yeah, when the whole nonsense thing struck March of 2020, and people were afraid and they were in anxiety, I mean, my wife and I, we actually sat back. I remember when it first started, when our worship temples closed, when it first started, I realized they were taking away our rights. Yeah, and we need to speak with our pastors and our ministers and let them know that it is not okay to stop worshiping, to capitulate to that level of authority, because by doing that, your pastor, your sermon, your minister is acknowledging that God is not the highest authority. So what is the point of the worship in the first place? But we need to vocalize that, and we need to have a voice in our churches and our communities to let people know what the true high authority is. That every day I humble myself before God, before Jesus Christ. Because that's how you become free. That is what a free man does. I have my king. I know who my king is. Praise the Lord. But when the madness hit, I remember my mom's church did their stuff outside. Very cool. That's fine. Meet in the field. I'm all good with that. I think that's cool. So I remember sitting with my wife, and we were on Long Island still. And we were sitting outside, and we were like, man, it's so quiet. And I had kind of already developed that anti-fragile mindset. I was like, yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. I tweeted the night that 45 announced the 15-day shutdown in big bold letters that they are going to use blah, blah, blah to take your rights. That night I tweeted that, and that was the most traction on a tweet I had ever gotten. It just crazy how many retweets I got. So I knew what was going on. I sat down with my wife, and we were outside, and I was like, man, this is kind of nice. It was so quiet. We lived in a more suburban, urban area, and we sat down. It was so quiet. I was like, man, this is really nice. And it was very calming those few months when everyone was in a panic. And I remember in August of 2020, I looked at my beautiful wife, and I said, let's have a baby, and you should have saw the twinkle in her eye and her smile, and we have my daughter Aubrey now, and God is so good. The first time, I wasn't always the guy I am now, right? Like, I've gone on my soul's path, and I was the party guy. I was the guy who showed up at bars, and, people would literally scream my name. Like, I'd walk into the bars, and, all over the bar, you'd hear, people, bird calling, Brett Pike! And I was that, drinking and chasing girls, embracing that hookup culture, that nonsense that I think is so disgusting now, that I think is systematically designed to hurt young people, to prevent them from pair bonding and having family and babies and everything that is true, good, and beautiful in the world. So I wasn't always that guy, and the first time my wife and I went to have a baby, I was drinking alcohol all the time. I watched pornography, and it took us 18 months to get pregnant. And by the time the thing had come around, I had already changed my lifestyle very much so. I haven't watched pornography in years. I haven't drinking alcohol. I think the pandemic. I did it again. That's when I stopped drinking alcohol, and I haven't since. I haven't had a drink since March of 2020, and I'm not an alcoholic. I just made a decision that the world was changing and my children need a good role model, and I'm going to be that role model. And my wife was like, I looked at her the second time after I had stopped living that lifestyle. I just looked at her. She looked at me, and boom, she's pregnant. This is a very interesting paradigm. But yeah, so when everyone was breaking down, we were like, this is great. This is what life's all about. And we had a baby and no despair, and we sold our house. We were like, let's get out of debt. Let's start a homestead. We moved across the country. I'm not at my homestead right now, but I will be very soon. I can't wait to show it to you guys. I'm going to show you every step of the process. But start a homestead, and we're going to grow our own food. And because if you don't have a corporate boss, like I own my business, right? Like I have a business. I'm not in debt. I'll soon have the ability to feed not only my family, but I plan on feeding multiple families around me. Some of that will be at a charge. Some of that I'll just be giving them free stuff. And I plan on feeding the people around me and building that community. Because the funny thing is, when you show people you value them, and by the way, thank you for the roses, and you provide them lots of value, then they become valuable to you. Like wealth is people. They want us to think wealth is money. Money is not wealth. My children are wealth. My neighbors caring for me is wealth. But that's how, right? Because now I won't be relying on the grocery store or the corporate authoritarian, right? But that's what being anti-fragile is all about. And just like this account, which is now very unpersoned, I didn't properly plan, and I'm seeing the ramifications of that now. And I could complain that it's not fair. Well, life's not fair. It's like when people complain that the beast system, like the news, they're hypocrites. They know they're hypocrites, and they know they're lying. They don't care. So like I could sulk and feel sorry for myself, and I did that a little bit. Like I had like half a day where I was probably really cranky because you work so hard to build something. I mean, I started the account in July. I had 75,000 plus followers, over 1.5 million impressions. Really making an impact on the world. And I don't practice false humility either. My message is powerful, and my message is positive and moral and good. And me reaching 1.5 million people is a really positive impact I was making on the world. And to think that I was able to do that in a short period of time is cool. It's really cool. But I didn't plan right? I was like, oh, it's going good. Wasn't anti-fragile. Well, now I'm trying to diversify my social media strategy and become more anti-fragile. And join my email list through my website. There's a pop-up box when you go to the website. Just put it in there. I'm going to be creating new accounts, and then I'm going to be growing on Instagram and Gab, which I love. Again, there's this really cool account on Insta, the Panda Bear, or it's like at the Panda Parody, just crushing. I mean, the account started one day ago. It's been like 24 hours. Already almost 700 followers on that account. They are hilarious, those guys. And imagine I could actually do a social media post to let people know it's mine. I mean, allegedly. But, so all good things happening. Need to diversify. I want to get onto BitChute and Odyssey. I want to be more strategic with my YouTube. Pinterest is really good. I need to get on the Pinterest Reels and Snapchat. So I'm going to be putting together plans to diversify, reach out, but not just on the beast stuff, but on that Gab. Like, Gab is the best platform. In my opinion, Gab is probably the best platform on social media. Gab is phenomenal. I'm Classical Learner on there. Andrew Torba is... I'm going to wind up being friends with Torba. He doesn't know it yet, but when I set my mind to stuff, because Torba is based as it comes. The infrastructure he has built there, in spite of the censorship they have faced, is phenomenal, and every one of us should support what he's doing. So I'll be hopefully bringing in some people. By the way, if anyone wants to assist, email me classicallearnertoday@gmail.com. I don't know exactly what I'd be having you do. But anyway, so it's all about being anti-fragile. And to me, when we educate our children, and I kind of covered this yesterday, that's what we want to do. right? We want to make them anti-fragile. And like I've made these books where I've already started teaching children their rights. My friend Tom Burnett, who's currently, it's hilarious how many friends I have like that are like governors and running for governor now. But my friend Tom Burnett, who's running for the mayor in, I forget which town in Australia, he's going to be releasing a workshop teaching children about common law. And when he releases that, that's one of the things I'm going to promote, because like this stuff is good, like learning the Bill of Rights. I'm going to write a book about the Bill of Rights. But the stuff he's learning, like teaching, is common law and how to properly interact with authority so that you can keep a sovereign jurisdiction. I know what I'm talking about. It's like all out. I'll get into it another day. It's really powerful stuff. Yeah, think powerful, be powerful. People don't know how protected we are by God and by the legal system, by our rights. People, oh, the legal system's broken. I would never give legal advice. I'm just an idiot. Don't listen to me. But, for example, there's Crow 777 Radio, CRROW 777 Radio. The people he's had on, they could really teach you just how powerful you are and how protected you are by the books, believe it or not. People just don't know how to protect themselves because we're not educated in doing so. But I'm going to make sure the next generation is. And hopefully one day I'll work with Tom and maybe he could put something together specifically for children. I would like that. So when we educate our children, it's all about anti-fragile, right? And we start that by, you got to have a root in their morality. Now listen, I understand people he's the Christian guy. I am. I have great respect for Muslims that really practice Islam, right? I have great respect. Jewish people who practice Judaism. I have great respect for these people. The point is that you should raise children with your morality. And if that morality is based in your interpretation of God, I think that's a really positive thing. And by doing that, you are preparing children to be anti-fragile, right? Like, usury is one of the worst sins in the Bible, right? Don't be in debt. Love thy neighbor. All the things I talk about. Wait until marriage. Put family first. Have lots of children. Be fruitful and multiply. These are all biblical, and these are the true currencies, the true wealth, where your true strength comes from. So we start our children, we educate them in morality, then we focus on the process of learning and critical thinking in early childhood, because in these elite private schools, by the time they get to 9th grade, 80+% of their work is student-led. Well, how do you get to that point? You raise them in the process of learning and critical thinking. Now, these elite private schools that I talk about, that the Rockefellers send their children to and whatnot, they're educated using the classical method of education, which is the trivium of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. My YouTube page, Classical Learner, I have episodes that are specifically devoted to classical education. Let's go through my YouTube page, my videos a few weeks back, classical education, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Children who understand these things are educated in the process of critical thinking, the process of learning. Of course, we do this through Montessori, Charlotte Mason, children learning through playing, unschooling, children following their interests, using those interests to develop skills, because our fourth tenet, it's the process of learning, critical thinking, skills over subject matter, not that subjects don't matter. We teach our children construction, engineering, how to build with their hands, archery, karate, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I have a friend who is a black belt and a world champion in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, a friend of mine in New York, and he opened a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym. And now he's actually probably going to open a second gym, but now he earns a living teaching people Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, including children. My son was in his class, and that's because he has the skill of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So teach your children Jiu-Jitsu, teach your children karate, teach them to be hair cutters and barbers and cosmetology and makeup and waxing and engineering and plumbing and electrical and architecture and photography and videography and any skill you could think of in public speaking. And then you make sure they get entrepreneurial experience every 6 months from the time they are 5 years old until they have their own business running and they don't even need you anymore. And that could be at 13, 15, 17, 20. I don't care. Age is a number. But our mindset and our mental maturity is really where we are and what makes us strong, independent, sovereign, and free human beings. Because an educated person is not a person who could talk about the Pythagorean theorem. An educated person is not someone who could lecture you on the Big Bang Theory. An educated person is not someone who can tell you what happened in World War I or some official narrative. An educated person is a person who has the skills and the knowledge and the experience and the mindset to live a free and independent and sovereign life in which they are not reliant on a corporate boss, in which they are not reliant on government programs, in which they are not reliant on anyone else, but they do rely on their neighbors and their friends because they are based in morality and they do understand the power and that true wealth comes from community, true wealth comes from family. That is how we free ourselves. That is how we build a better community, a better family, a better America, a better nation, a better world. My private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected, promotion code together is $10 a month. You get access to my community, my research, myself, and you support me, which I think is really good. And Classical Learner Today on Instagram. Allegedly, there might be another account, but I don't even want to talk about it because it's a little more controversial. But hey, you back me into a corner. Sometimes I have to get controversial. Like it always feels like Big Brother's watching me. 100 to calm real quick, but that was awesome. Yeah. So, anyway, guys, thank you. I really appreciate all your support. And the last week has been a roller coaster of emotions for me. A little bit of a tough time, but I'm very happy. I released the Peanut Trap, which I'm so excited about. I worked with Hand Drawn Bear on Instagram. She is a gem. I mean, you could see the quality of her work and how talented she is. And if you ever need an illustrator, check out Hand Drawn Bear because she's. Someone pointed out, I didn't even realize she did this, but she put the bacon strips on the back of the pigs, the foreshadowing of their backs, which I think is really cool. But she's real based, real intelligent. So is Masha Noir. You can find her on Fiverr. Masha, she probably adds more value to the Cubs to Bears books than I do. But I mean, look at her work. Masha Noir is a phenomenal artist, and I'm very blessed to come across her. I do credit myself with discovering Masha. She was a new artist on the scene, and I went through my wife could attest, I probably went through the work of like 300 different artists, just scrolling through pages, and I came across Masha when I started the Cubs to Bears series, and she told me she wasn't available, and let's just say I could be persistent. And ever since then, we've had an amazing working relationship, and I'm very blessed to have Masha in my life, as I'm blessed to have you in my life, and everything that God has given me, and everything that happens to me, my trials, my adversity, I'm supposed to learn from them. And what's happened in the last week has taught me that I did not position myself to be strong enough to withstand what has occurred. And that's not sulk, feel bad for myself. That's now I have to adjust. I have to be better, stronger, and better position myself to be anti-fragile. So everything that happens is a gift from God, even when it seems like Satan is raining firestorms upon you. Know that through those firestorms is God's beautiful light touching down on you. And if you always keep that mindset, this world would be a much better place. Freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day. I'll be back at 12 tomorrow to earn it. God bless, guys.